Hey, welcome back to the Parker's Couch, or welcome for your first time. If you haven't liked, subscribed, or shared the podcast or the YouTube channel yet, make sure you do that. Do all these things. The podcast is on all major platforms, and we will be returning very shortly. And you can follow us here on YouTube. Today, we're going to get into the P. Diddy situation. It's a nice rainy day here in Washington, D.C., and I've been reading through this P. Diddy news like I'm sure a lot of us are. But just in case you haven't, I want to share a few things with you, or maybe share some things with you about it that you have not had the chance to view yet. Well, it was announced today that Diddy is possibly facing now a federal grand jury situation. Federal investigators are preparing to bring accusers of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs before a federal grand jury. Two sources familiar with the probe tell CNN, signaling the U.S. Justice Department is moving toward potentially seeking an indictment of Combs. Possible witnesses have been notified by investigators that they could be brought into to testify in front of a federal grand jury in New York City, according to one source. Bringing individuals who have filed civil lawsuits against Combs before a grand jury will mark a significant escalation in the government's ongoing investigation involving the producer and Bad Boy Records founder. Combs has been named in eight civil lawsuits since November, seven directly accusing him of sexual assault. One of the eight lawsuits filed by former girlfriend Cassie Ventura, and we all saw the video that came out too with that as well, has been settled. Another lawsuit accused his son Christian Combs of sexual assault, and Sean Combs is accused of aiding and abetting. A spokesperson for the Homeland Security Investigators Agency declined to comment on the existence of a grand jury, but noted the investigation remains ongoing. So things are definitely heating up in the Diddy situation here. Possibly be going in front of a federal grand jury. This is huge, 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 huge news going on. And it just keeps getting thicker and thicker for Diddy. I'm gonna do following this video. If you stick around, I'm going to go into some of the cases of the most recent um, accusers. We have April Lampros, and the other one with Miss McKinney, the model. I had the court case, but now I can't find it. We'll see if I find it if we get into that one. But I definitely have the case for April that we're going to get into. But it just keeps getting more and more and more deep waters going on for Diddy right here, and it's not looking good. On top of that, if you didn't see today, the Rolling Stone, they did a 6-month investigation into the Diddy situation, in which they um they asked to interview like around 300 folks, or approximately 300 people, it says, but it led to 50 interviews, or more than 50 people decided to do the interview with Rolling Stone. And they go into depth of really uncovering a lot of the details of Diddy from past to present that are going on. And I just want to read through this article talks about the 10 takeaways that Rolling Stone got. If you have a chance, go and read the article from Rolling Stone, the full investigation that they did. But we're going to talk about the takeaways right now. Number one, abuse allegations against Combs date back to his college years. Now, I was telling people, like, this is not new. Like, you don't just start abusing people. The industry doesn't make you do these things. You know, we want to put all these boogeyman and throw Hollywood as this ghostly thing or whatnot. But it's deeper than that. It's something within a person, and it starts earlier, and it has to be in you to be this dark to do these things. So abuse allegations against Combs date back to his college years. At Howard, Combs became known for hosting rowdy weekly parties, but several women remember him more for an alleged incident outside of a school dorm. One classmate tells Rolling Stone that Combs showed up outside a woman's dorm one night and began screaming for a girlfriend in a belligerent manner. Other women in the dorm quickly began running through the halls, knocking on doors in a panic. According to the source, they were sounding the alarm that Combs, known then by the nickname Puff, was attacking the young woman outside, she recalls. Puff is out here acting crazy. He's beating her, the fellow student said, according to the classmate. He screamed and hollered and acted a stone fool until she came downstairs, says another student who witnessed the beating. She says Combs used what appeared to be a belt to strike the young woman all over the place. Speaking on the condition of anonymity due to the sensitive nature of the incident, the witness says Combs appeared super angry and was screaming at the top of his lungs, adding that he whooped her butt, like really whooped her butt. The witness says that the woman was clearly terrorized. She was trying to defend herself a little bit. She was crying, and we were telling him get off of her. We were screaming for her. A third source also recalled the alleged assault to Rolling Stone. And the woman at the center attack declined to speak with Rolling Stone. Back since college, y'all. So, like I said, this is 1 second here, and stop sharing that screen and the article, and I'm gonna share it again in a minute. But I want to speak directly to my black folks right now for a minute. Actually, let me take a swig of water. You know what I'm tired of? I'm tired of the few folks out there, or the number of folks. I don't know how many in numbers, but are saying like they didn't do all this for such and such, and then they name some white person. They didn't do all this for la da 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 da. So that what is that supposed to mean? Approve? Like I don't understand. So should we not be talking about these things? We're not gonna pretend that P Diddy has not gotten away with this stuff for like over half of my life. Things have been floating around there about Puff P Diddy forever, forever, and now the chickens are finally coming home to roost. I don't care what they did or did not do for anybody else. We are dealing with an abuser, a present situation right here. This is not no sweep it under the rug. Let's not talk about it. Let's not attack a black man type thing. If we can't talk about it now, when can we talk about it? When is it appropriate to talk about it? Can we only talk about it after they do X, Y, and Z to white people? It doesn't make any sense. Please stop the comparisons and let's deal with this situation right now and allow these victims a chance to voice, to voice what they went through. All right, I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm just tired. I was reading more stuff today and more of that coming on. Just stop. Just stop it. Just stop it altogether. That situation does not apply to every situation at hand. And it definitely doesn't apply to this situation, in my humble opinion. All right, now back to our scheduled program and back to this Rolling Stone article. So we had college number two, the second takeaway. Combs allegedly beat a music executive bloody over the man's relationship with Combs' ex Kim Porter. Now, I think a lot of people may remember this. I do remember this being talked about before this alleged incident. But in 2000, Porter's fledgling courtship with late music executive Shakir Stewart enraged Combs when the industry gathered for L.A. Reid's wedding in Italy that summer. Combs went to Stewart's hotel room after the ceremony and allegedly broke a chair over Stewart's head. Stewart's mother and two of his close friends tell Rolling Stone he left him bleeding on a hotel floor in Italy. Stewart's mother, Portia, says he had to have stitches, and then Combs threatened him. I'm going to kill you. That's when I said, you need to get out of this business. This man is crazy. Number three, Combs sexually harassed a business associate at a 2001 party. After Combs' acquittal in a shooting incident in New York club, we all know that shooting incident, he went to the excuse me, he went to the Peninsula Hotel where he was throwing a massive bash to celebrate the verdict. Anna, a freelance graphic designer working with Bad Boy's marketing team, says Combs approached her and began to massage her shoulders. The woman requested a pseudonym citing fear of retribution. I'm getting touched on my shoulder, my arms, my back. He's like, oh, yeah, you like that? I know you like that. Like, really, really gross. Anna recalls sharing her story publicly for the first time. I was like, no, not so much. And I floated my way out of there. Anna says she avoided Combs the rest of the night. Weeks later, her boss girlfriend confided that Combs allegedly approached the boss the night of the party to solicit me for sex. Anna says a friend confirmed to Rolling Stone that Anna told her about both the encounter and the proposed arrangement when they began working together a few years later. The boss did not respond to Rolling Stone's request for an interview, and the girlfriend declined to speak. I felt quite unsettled about this for many years when people asked me about my days at Bad Boy. It's just overshadowed by his crap, Anna says, adding that Combs treated her as though she existed to accommodate his whims. I know we were wondering about other people who work there or who are apart, who are around, like where their voices and things. And we talked about this fear element and stuff before, and that power and fear mix, and I can understand. But I think it's really we're seeing in real time how hard it is for especially women to come out with these stories because of how often they're not believed. We see what all happened with Cassie, where a lot of people didn't believe her until they had video evidence. Um, and they can't deny like what happened now once they're seeing it with their own eyes. So I'm not gonna fault these folks for not coming out and sounding an alarm because this world is crazy. Y'all just don't be believing people. Number four, Combs allegedly attacked the woman inside Bad Boy's offices. And I guess this Burroughs says he once saw Combs physically assault a woman inside Bad Boy's offices in 1994. He had another ex-employee tell Rolling Stone that he had to tear Combs off the woman after hearing screams and the sound of shattering glass. The woman declined Rolling Stone's request for comment. Felicia Newsom, the first manager of Bad Boy's recording studio, Daddy's House, recalls once holding Combs back when he was about to beat the girl's ass after a fight broke out between two women. I'm holding him by his waist saying, you need to calm down. This is not your fight. Not you getting in the women's business too and trying to fight women. And y'all don't want to talk about this man? Okay. Number five, three accusers speak out for the first time. It isn't about the money. Three of the women now suing Combs for sexual assault tell Rolling Stone that once they learned their abuse was part of an alleged pattern. See, we just talked about that. Like once things are coming out, more and more people are now comfortable to come out. It was time to lend their voices to hold Combs accountable. It isn't about the money, says Joy Dickerson Neal. It's about making sure the world sees the man who rose to the level of an icon is actually sick and has left so many victims in the wake of his unpunished, disgusting behavior for years. Yes, he's gone unpunished. He's gone unpunished for all this stuff for such a long time. I had a whole future in modeling mapped out that was stolen from me. Being sexually assaulted and having no recourse is so painful, model Crystal McKinney says. Now, Crystal is the one who just came out last week with one of the stories that I will talk about in the following video. I felt like I was dying every day. because I did not yet have the strength to come forward. I hope that by speaking out, I can help other survivors come forward and seek justice. A Detroit area Jane Doe who alleges she was gang raped by Combs, shown here in the photo with him on the night of the alleged encounter. His former executive Harvey Pierre and a third unidentified man in 2003 tells Rolling Stone it was incredibly difficult to share her story, but she was encouraged by the voices of the other women. It is important to remember that it's not just Combs, but all of those who acted with him stood silent and actively covered up his behavior that must be held accountable, she says. Now, that part, I do have to kind of readdress something I said earlier with people who work for him and things. When you are witnessing literal crimes or things of that nature, no, you gotta speak out. I could see if there's innuendos, if you're not so sure, not so certain. But if you are seeing things and knowing things are taking place, no, you you should have been speaking out about those things. Absolutely. Absolutely. Number six, Combs was jealous of Tupac Shakur's friendship with Notorious B.I.G. Now I've been seeing this one trending and stuff today. People talking about this. But before Combs and his Bad Boy label were embroiled in a rivalry with Mary and Suge Knight's Death Row Records, he was fond of the charismatic Shakur. His Bad Boy team spent the summer of 1993 studying the rapper's hit I Get Around as a blueprint for a commercial hip hop record. Desperate to be taken seriously, Combs tried to foster a friendship with one of hip hop's greatest talents, sources said. Not being a weirdo in front of in this too, trying to force a relationship going on. But Tupac wasn't interested. Tupac probably sensed it was something not right with this dude. Pac didn't have any kind of respect for Puff, says 90s hip hop photographer Monique Bunn, who is close with Christopher Notorious B.I.G. Wallace and other bad boy artists. To Tupac and even Wallace, Bunn says Combs was a corny executive. Instead, according to Bad Boy ex-president Kurt Boris, Shakur bonded with Wallace, whom he viewed as a peer. As a result, he says, referring to Combs, there was someone on the sidelines jealous, not wanting that friendship to happen. I totally believe it. And I think growing up in that era, you could feel that like Puff was always corny to me. He was corny to a lot of us. Um, yeah, and he had that cornball flavor to him, so I can see that absolutely being the reaction. And that's probably, what it's a lot of the insecurities and stuff that he felt that contributed to this dark path is not an excuse, is not a valid reason, but some people just are that insecure. And he strikes me as someone highly insecure and has done things to overpower that insecurity in such a violent manner. Number seven, sources say Combs had abandonment issues and wouldn't let the women in his life move on. Hmm. That made sense. That definitely made sense. Damian Vasquez, a former Bad Boy intern, says after Combs and Jennifer Lopez broke up, Combs had staffers camp outside MTV's TRL studios with signs to win her back. Ventura claimed that every time she hid from him, Combs' network or operatives found her and implored her to return, including a Bad Boy executive who threatened to withhold the release of her music if she didn't return to Combs. If she didn't return his calls. Wow, that's crazy. That is some petty, 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 petty stuff right there. Uh, and it was given that desperation. I remember it back then. It seemed like J Lo couldn't get out of his mouth after they were over. It was really weird. It believed that Combs Burroughs believes Combs' losses at a young age, especially the murder of his father, took a toll on his relationships. He's fortified now with the money and the power, but abandonment and the act of leaving can bring about vicious results. The women catch it the worst. Porter, who died of lobar pneumonia in 2018, was no exception. Her relationship with Combs was tumultuous, according to two sources who claimed that Combs physically abused her. I remember Kim going through a lot of stuff. Former Bad Boy rapper Mark Curry says, let me cut up this brightness on my computer screen. I'm going blind, y'all. If you live around them, you get to see the toxic relationship. I think every relationship he had that I experienced around him was like that. After their breakup, Combs refused to let her move on, Porter told Essence. He still called 50 to 60 times a day, she said. It was like my life was not my own. He was very, very, very intrusive. That's a sick man. That's sick. But that's a lot of enablement too around here. Like, y'all know this man is calling the people close to him. Y'all know he's doing this weirdo mess right there. That's not, that's when you need a real friend in life to tell you you're doing too much. Number 8, Combs quickly sought the spotlight at the Biggie's death. I mean, that's obvious. I don't think we need an investigation for that one. But just 2 weeks after Wallace was murdered in March 1997, Combs ordered LaJoyce Brookshire, the former director of publicity for Arista and Bad Boy, to focus on all efforts on Wallace's upcoming album, Life After Death. Combs denied Brookshire's request for time off to process her grief and instead demanded she work until the album was number one, number one, number one, number one, number one, top 10, top 10, top 10, she recalls. It sold nearly 700,000 copies in the first week. When Rolling Stone approached Bad Boy about a cover opportunity a few months after Biggie's murder, Burroughs claims he advocated for the late rapper to take the spot. I was telling Sean, let's make it Biggie. You still have a chance for a cover in the future. He's like, no, he's dead. I'm putting out Combs' debut album, No Way Out, in July. I need to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. Combs got his cover. 2 years later, he acknowledged how Biggie's death had been big business. I think his passing added to the fame, Combs told Rolling Stone in 1999. At least 2 million of the nearly 5 million copies of No Way Out sold were due to his death straight up. And that doesn't necessarily feel good, but that's the reality. I mean, and that's truth. That's truth. He admitted it 2 years later. I mean, I would say more than 2 million. So was because of that. Virtually 4 million sold or more was because of that. I don't, people were not really featuring Puff like that back then. He was just kind of there. I don't know. It's definitely the death of Biggie helped his rise. Number 9, co-workers showed disdain for Combs behind his back inside the Bad Boy's office. You know, you know how work goes. Y'all know how the workplace be. Talk all this stuff behind somebody's back, but then smile in their faces, and I'm sure a lot of that was going on. Let's see. Burroughs recalls jealous uptown execs referring to Combs as Satan and flipping him off as they walked by his offices in the uptown building. Bad Boy sources say Combs was difficult to work for, claiming employees who wanted to stick around had to learn how to speak puffy. A demanding boss, Combs often yelled to get his point across and fired employees on a whim. Well, I believe that. Everybody watching Making a Band, you could believe that. No one on his team at Bad Boy spoke back to him. Former Daddy House studio manager Felicia Newsom says no one challenged him. Another source recalls artist Mace calling Combs massa behind his back. Mace did not respond to the Rolling Stones request for comment. I wonder if he talked about this on his podcast. Now with Cam, if they brought that up. He was so volatile, says a source who sometimes worked with Bad Boy. He's always on the edge of snapping and being scary. People did whatever he said to stay in good graces. And Puffy exploited people's desires to be in those environments. Now we talked about a lot of that in Lil Rod's. That gives some validity to Lil Rod's lawsuit with a lot of things he talks about as far as all the promises and things and people what that Diddy would make and how people stuck it in just to get something out of it, which I just think is people, y'all got to get some new standards in life. I understand, an industry that you really want to be in. You feel like it's a learning curve because I think early on you feel like some of this abuse you take at work is natural, right? And I think there's an element of you that has to go through that whenever you're young. But then you got to wake up and be like, this is not natural. You shouldn't be sticking in. There's a point where you're going to figure that out. If you're talking and flipping off behind somebody's back, you're at that point. Okay? You don't need to be you should be in there just trying to save face to get ahead, and I'm sure you wasn't making anything anyway. I'm pretty sure you were underpaid at the same time. But anyway, the last one, number 10. Many bad boy artists were unhappy or believe Combs blacklisted them. Now, we've definitely heard about this before. Mark Curry, who was affiliated with Bad Boy from 1997 to 2006, and later wrote the book Dancing with the Devil, How Puff Burned the Bad Boys of Hip Hop in 2009. I never read that book. I do remember that book, though. He says Combs repeatedly promised, excuse me, he says Combs repeatedly promised to produce his solo album, but never gave him a budget. There's different ways you can kill a person, Curry tells Rolling Stone. You can kill them by the experience. You can physically kill them. I've noticed him kill a lot of people's spirits. Some who love Combs worried he might try to expel them from the industry altogether. Brooklyn rapper Lanice Babs Bunny, Wiley of Combs, remember Babs? Of Combs' MTV reality show Making the Band, says she was blackballed after leaving the label. Photographer Monique Bunn claims her gigs instantly dried up after winning a lawsuit against Combs for withholding a set of Biggie's photos from her in 2000. She claims a friend at the Fader magazine told her that Combs personally called the office and said that if they worked with Bunn, Bad Boy would pull his advertising from the magazine. He's someone you don't want to make an enemy out of, says one former employee. When people do go against him, that person gets ostracized. As ex-Bad Boy President Burroughs puts it, Combs never forgets a grudge. If he sees a snag in the sweater, he'll pull. That's a good analogy there. Well, there you have it, folks. I guess that gets. I'm curious how y'all feel about that because I get the blackballing element, and that's got to be difficult, especially if you're in an entertainment business and this is your love, your livelihood. This is what you're good at, your art. So you're trying to walk that line and balance without compromising your integrity of, you know, uh, of staying in there. But that integrity just gets compromised. Like it's just no way around it if you stick in there. And sometimes you got to make the hard decisions. I just wish a bunch of people banded together early on because no one can do it alone. And if people band together, if they did do that at that point, was like, we're not putting up with this. What is P Diddy going to do then? What choice would he have to make? He can't do it by himself. We're stronger in mass in numbers. We're stronger together. I don't understand. We have a hard time figuring that out as people, and we'll let one person walk all over us and control us. When if we just kind of got together, that one person would be powerless. But hey, there you have it. All right, stay tuned for the next videos where I'm going to go into the lawsuits that were released this previous week in case you're not familiar with the details that were in them. All right. Be good. Stay blessed, tater tots, and talk to y'all later.